So, time to cast your minds back into the 2016 referendum, and there we go. And here we have, as has been made crystal clear by so many commenters on this, by me myself even saying this and raising this point several times. Look, a no deal Brexit was never ever countenanced by the Leave campaign at all, even the unofficial Leave campaign. You had Nigel Farage, which we're going to be talking about in a bit, talking about how he said how Norway would be a perfect model for us to Brexit on, how that's what we should aspire to be, and yet it's no deal Brexit now. But if you remember, during the referendum, Leave's official policy was that we would get a deal first, then we would trigger Article 50, and then we would leave. That has not happened. What happened was the Brexit vote happened, David Cameron left, Theresa May came in, everyone was worried by what was going to happen, and then the ERG said, if you do not trigger Article 50, we will walk over to UKIP, and that would mean that the Tory majority would be gone, because there are about, 65 members of the ERG at this point. Again, quite a powerful bloc in the Tory movement, shall we say. So, what happened? Triggered Article 50 against all promises from the Leave campaign. So this idea that the quote, the referendum result was not followed, was first of all broken by Leavers. But anyway, enough of that. On to Nigel Farage, because this is, again, a fun point to bring up. So, this is a direct quote from Nigel Farage, indeed from his Leave.eu campaign. So, leaving the EU will have significant geopolitical and economic consequences, but we believe it is unrealistic to expect a clean break immediately, unravelling 40 years of integration in a single step. So read the opening paragraph of a detailed plan for leaving the EU, which Nigel Farage's Leave.eu campaign signed up to in January of 2016. Oh. We all instinctively know that politics shift the goalpost when it suits them. But it is a rare that they do so quickly and so blatantly. As the leader of the Brexit Party, it is still rarer to be able to pin down precisely the exact point based on the institutable documentary evidence. Farage is currently touring the country on a platform of anything other than a clean WTO Brexit. It is not a real Brexit, and that is not having having already happened is a huge betrayal. Yet, in January of 2016, Leave.eu agreed to a detailed plan for leaving the EU that outlined a careful separation over 2 decades, membership of the single market in the medium term, and, in the most astonishing of all, a second referendum to approve the withdrawal agreement. So, bear in mind when people say that having a second referendum is, quote, undemocratic, here you have Mr. Leave himself offering a second referendum. The glossy Leave.eu branded 420-page document was a product of a meeting between Aaron Banks and Andy Wigmore on the Leave.eu side and Richard North on behalf of the Leave Alliance. As part of the package, Leave.eu has decided to adopt Flexcit as their formal exit plan, North wrote at the time. Changes, including a rebranding exercise of Flexcit to the market solution, were agreed, and sure enough, a couple of days later, the document saw the glare of publicity. The plan for Brexit would be a process, not an event. The document acknowledged and went on to provide a template for the next 20 or so years. It promises that a continued participation in the EU single market will not be necessary in the short to medium term. But the first stage of the plan would be limited to a smooth, economically neutral transition into the post-exit world. This would be subject to a referendum to approve the initial exit agreement. It envisages a exact second referendum that Farage now labels as democratic outrage. This alliance is proposed plan ultimately fell apart fairly quickly. By the end of February, the Leave Alliance and Leave.eu had gone their separate ways, but the matters for the three crucial reasons. First, it was agreed at a pivotal moment when Farage was trying to bring together big hitters from outside the UKIP tent, and he succeeded briefly. Thanks to this more sensible approach, a couple of weeks after the market solution was published, Farage announced a grassroots out, an umbrella grouping, which brought together Leave.eu and figures such as Labour's Katie Howe, Conservative Peter Bone, and former Minister Liam Fox. Second, it shows that as late as 2016, most leading Brexit campaigners accepted that there were infinite varieties of Brexit and that indeed a Norway-like relationship, and yet these varieties were branded almost immediately after the referendum Brexit in name only. Third, perhaps the most important, it is to this date the only detailed exit plan any Leave campaigners have ever presented to the public. This conciliatory, careful approach to Brexit was part of Farage's bid to secure a designated Leave campaign status at the time. The document initially included in the bundle they intended to submit to the Electoral Commission. Farage was even courting Vote Leave, which went on to become the official campaign, in an attempt to a coalition. North was also having regular meetings with Dominic Cummings, but something then happened. I don't know what, recalls North. Cummings went dark on me. What happened we can only ultimately guess, although Cummings is illuminating on his issue in his blog. Creating an exit plan that makes sense with all reasonable people could unite around seems an almost indisputable task. Even if one succeeded, the sheer complexity of leaving would involve endless questions of detail that cannot be answered, he wrote. There is so much to be gained by severing the whole issue. The detail of how Brexit would actually work was basically too hard to sell. If people got a glimpse of the decades of difficult trade-offs and punishing stalemates, though, which they are currently leaving, they would never choose them. So much easier to cynically propose a simple, brilliant, no downsides deals concluded over a cup of tea in one afternoon, then pin the blame onto someone else when they do not materialise. Ireland, the EU, May, Johnson, Parliament, judges, Remainers, and anyone would do. And what of Farage's shift? Some say he killed the Flexcit solution because of the Flexcit solution behind the scenes. Some say he was backing the Norway-type models even late into 2015 and early 2016. Certainly, he's on record praising Norway on numerous other occasions. But either way, he was a leading figure in Leave.eu and put its branding on what it called the marketing solution document. So when did he go from agreement to a carefully 20-year process in 2016 to claiming anything other than an immediate no-deal Brexit is not the real Brexit in 2019? Well, that one is easy. Step by step, as his career demeaned, a figure whose notoriety is defined by his hatred of the European Union does not exist without the European Union. When Alexandra Phillips, Farage's former aide, left UKIP to join the Tories in 2016, she wrote a remarkable clear-eyed piece with this, which which goes on to say, which the central underlying factor, the heart of the party, was now ripped out, she wrote. UKIP paradoxically has to rely on Brexit failing in order to maintain relevance. Since being elected as a Brexit Party MEP in May, she has changed her tune again. She rides the gravy train now, but her original point still stands. What you offer is a mirage. Your success depends absolutely on keeping it at a distance, which still looks convincing and desirable. When you know that what you will have promised to deliver is undeliverable, your only option is to keep rewriting your original promise. The resulting turmoil might mean misery for us, but to them, it's living the dream. I completely agree on that. This is why, again, should Brexit happen, whatever happens, Farage will just bang that drum for years and years that we were betrayed, that the constitution should be changed to suit his right-wing fantasies. This is what happens, and yet again, you have a very dangerous precedent by the Tories themselves saying that they want to get rid of the Supreme Court. Well, there goes, people, and ironically, this is what some of the Tories actually complain about the EU. You see, when you make laws, sometimes there are going to be people that don't follow them. This is why you then have to have judges and courts to enforce those laws. And this is why the Tories, and particularly the British Eurosceptics, hate the EU, because they're fine with regulations so long as they can get around them or sneak away with, or just ignore them out completely. The problem comes when there's a court exists that enforces those rules and regulations. And that's what they don't like. In fact, you saw as much during the recent Parliament proroguement, how they were calling this an absolute shambles. But no, the courts are there for a reason, to enforce laws that Parliament makes. It doesn't matter if you don't like them, then change the law. Don't blame the judges or the courts, because they are an crucial part of our democracy. But there you go. Once again, the British Eurosceptics showing that they cry about one thing on one hand, but when it doesn't suit them, then they don't like it and they want it gone.